public meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll then move into discussion, possible action on hand executive session. Regarding student conduct as presented in executive session.
Motion.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? The motion passes. Could I then have a motion to approve stipulated agreement number 2 regarding student conduct as presented in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Grant and a second by Mr. McCool. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. We'll then move into public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to give public comment, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And I'll give one last call for public comment. If you'd like to give public comment, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we'll move into the superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Montini.
Our high school, Mr. Principal John Harris is here. John, if you don't mind. Thank you.
To deliver additional supports to kind of see them through 9th grade all the way up to enrolling in college. The partnership comes at no cost to us. There are 2 components. There's an academic year component and a summer component. During the academic year, UConn will provide 2 counselors who will be on site at the high school for 3 days a week. Those counselors will provide academic tutoring to students, college advising, financial aid, and more than that, they really work to build a community among those students to kind of help them navigate some of the unique challenges that a first generation or low income student might face in accessing college. And with the ever changing landscape in response to the pandemic, there'll be two people who are really well versed in what those students need to get to college successfully. The summer component involves those students taking early college courses at the UConn. So similar to the ECE courses that we offer juniors and seniors throughout the school year, students who are enrolled in this program will have the opportunity to be up at the Waterbury campus for 4 weeks each summer. Again, that's free of charge. So throughout the program, they can earn 12 UConn credits. Those are transferable anywhere. That's almost a whole semester's worth that they would earn as a result of being in this program. Again, it's totally free to us. UConn gets funding from the State Office of Higher Education to implement these. So we're pretty excited about the opportunities that it'll open up for some of our students. If there are any questions about that. Okay. So next, I wanted to keep you apprised of some feedback that we've gotten about our bell schedule at the high school. A couple of years prior to the pandemic, we had shifted away from an 8-period day and adopted a block schedule. So under our current schedule, students meet their classes for 85 minutes. They meet 4 classes a day, and meet a class every other day. So if you can see on the slide, the current schedule is on the left there. So if Tenzin had science period 1, he would see his science teacher for 85 minutes every other day, and we kind of just alternate back and forth. Since we've come back to a normal year this year, we've gotten a good deal of feedback from teachers and students that 85-minute block has been difficult. It's been difficult for teachers in the sense that, part of our acceleration model is being able to assess frequently and plan accordingly based on what's needed. In that 85-minute block, seeing a class every other day, teachers are giving feedback that it can be difficult to do the kind of assessment needed and adjust planning at the pace that they need to adjust planning, where if they had somewhat shorter periods and more frequent meetings, they would be able to do that. Students have expressed some difficulty really just in staying engaged for the full 85-minute block, and that's something that I think every school is struggling with as we've gone through the 2 years of remote learning. There's some really interesting, I don't want to say cool, interesting research on how remote learning really impacted students' attention spans. But in any case, the feedback was that the periods were too long for a lot of students. The week after our April break, we are going to do a 1-week trial run of a schedule that looks a little bit different. It's commonly referred to as a drop 2 schedule. So this is the schedule that you see on the right there. Students would meet 6 periods a day and then drop 2 of their other periods. So in the case of Tenzin, right, he's got science period 1. He would go to science on an A day, a B day, a C day. So the week after break, that'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then science wouldn't meet on Friday. This lets us have somewhat shorter periods. In this model, they're 57 minutes. So it still allows a nice chunk of time for teachers to engage students in the deep thinking and the deep learning that our curriculum calls for, while giving them the more frequent meeting times and the ability to adjust their plans day to day based on what students really need. This schedule that we're trialing, if it was carried out over a full year, would add about 3.5 hours of instructional time to each class. So, it's only a minute or 2 every day, but that adds up over the course of a year. Our plan, again, is to try this just 1 cycle through the week after break, do some whole school surveys, but also engage in some focus groups with teachers and students afterwards. And then we'll keep you apprised if we're thinking of any final decisions or changes to the belt schedule.
Mr. Harris.
No, the way this is built, it's really just rearranging the periods that we currently have. Teachers would be teaching the same courses. Staff would be covering the same things that they're covering, no impact.
See how it goes when we do it, and then we'll be able to figure out what we think of it. But I'm excited to try it.
All right, thank you all.
Appreciate it. So, one of the leaders with-
Thank you. The high school has implemented the digital SATs and have a makeup window, which I've shared with you. We've completed our last links testing with our L students, harder balanced assessments, and NGSS assessments. And below each of those windows, I've added for you the calendar window for their applicable test as well. Okay,
Any questions?
thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Montini. We'll then move into our monthly reports, and we start with our student representatives report. So I'll turn it over to Tenzin and Josephine.
This past month has been extremely vibrant and exciting. So we have won numerous awards at the state level and are preparing to be at nationals. The boys basketball team won NBLs, and indoor track athletes broke school records, and some even made All-American. And turning it over to Josephine.
So on March, I don't know. I think so. Is it on? Okay. On March 23rd, we had a standardized testing and college readiness day. So freshmen took the iReady test, sophomores took the PSAT, juniors took the SAT, and then seniors had an opportunity to get ready for college through professional development activities, college visits, and shadowing and volunteering experiences.
And from NHS Clubs, Sunrise presented lessons on climate change and solutions to Cross Street students. Student Council led Leprechaunathon, an event in celebration in honor of Mr. Walsh. GSA collaborated with Dr. Michael Stokes to hold a LGBTQ plus teen mental health workshop. NPS readers will continue to have school visits to Hopbrook and Andrew Ave. And finally, young feminists are holding a donation drive for women and children's shelters.
Another update is that DEI Director Teresa Rangel has expanded student representation on townwide DEI committees that students have been invited to participate in, such as the community engagement, education, health and wellness, law enforcement, and town governments committees.
And update from Cross Street, students have continued to be leaders within their community and are currently planning fundraisers for Ukraine relief funds. A student has started a environmental club with Mrs. Shia Lyons and as an enrichment available to all students. And finally, Breeze, the therapy dog, has continued to visit Cross Street to support student well-being with individual sessions available for this month. And
Hillside and City Hill, the liaisons for those schools, due to scheduling conflicts, were not able to meet with their students, so we hope to have reports from them next month. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll then move into our facility use report. Any questions on the facility use report? Seeing none, we'll move into our human resources report. Any questions on the human resources report? Seeing none, we'll move into our enrollment report. Any questions on the enrollment report? Seeing none, we'll move into the finance report. Any questions on the finance report? Seeing none, we'll move into the fire drill crisis code report. Any questions on the fire drill report? Seeing none, we'll move into old business. And on old business, we have a number of policies that we had first read last month. So could I have a motion to approve BOE Policy 5125, confidentiality and access to education records as proposed?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Scully and a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Could I then have a motion to approve BOE Policy 5300 of student medications in school and the administrative regulations number 5300R?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Grant and a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Could I then have a motion to approve BOE Policy 5320R, immunizations, health screenings, oral health assessment, Form 1, administrative regulations?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell, a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Where is that? Okay. So that will be corrected. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes and will be corrected. That brings us into new business. So our first order of business is the request to name the Air Force JROTC classroom. So we received a request from John DeBishop at the Veterans Council to name the classroom outside the door there, correct? Outside that door, after Bob Genovese, a longtime borough resident and decorated military individual. And they, like I said, they are requesting to name the classroom after him. So at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to, in honor of the late Robert L. Genovese, service to the country, his fellow servicemen, and the borough of Naugatuck, we name the Air Force JROTC classroom at NHS the Robert L. Genovese Memorial Air Force JROTC classroom.
I'd like to make the motion.
We have a motion by Mayor Hess. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion?
Bob Genovese was a great American and a quintessential Naugatuckian.
Absolutely.
Tommy did a lot for the battle. Veterans on the statewide. I have one question. If we change the role for how these things go. Yes, I think Mr. DeBishop was forward thinking. They're going to buy a plaque, so the plaque would travel.
Yes.
And they're going to do the plaque and the naming ceremony the same day. As you know, we have a great ceremony on Memorial Day, and they'll do that day.
Awesome. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. Congratulations. We'll then move into the healthy food certification vote. So could Could I have a motion that pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-215F, the Naugatuck Board of Education or governing authority certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups.
So
This is a continuation from the week.
Correct. It's a vote that we have to do every year. Do we have a motion? Oh, we have a motion by Ethel. Ms. Grant, do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing, yep,
We get income from this.
correct.
yes, we do. We get approximately somewhere between $40,000 and $45,000 a year. We get approximately $40,000 to $45,000 a year, and we use the money. That's what we use the money to purchase any type of equipment, the freezers, refrigerators, things like that for the cafeteria program.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. Could I then have a motion that the Naugatuck Board of Education or governing authority will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met? 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of a regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food sales. We have a motion by Mr. Scully. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Could I then have a motion that the Naugatuck Board of Education or governing authority will allow the sale to students of beverages not listed in Section 10-221G of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met? 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the beverages are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. The school day is a period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the beverage sales. We have a motion by Mr. McCool. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. We'll then move on to the setting the graduation date. And could I have a motion to set the NHS graduation for the date of June 15th, 2022? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion?
What day of the week is that?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes and graduation is set for June 15th, 2022. 15th. We'll then move on to a bid award. And could I have a motion to accept the bid for the setup, takedown, and transport of district tents in the calendar year 2022 to Expert Rental? We have a motion by Ms. Makowski. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. McCool. Any discussion?
These are the tents that we use in school.
Yes, we are going to be discussing not just the need, but our ability to do this without ourselves. So we're going to cost out if we had to, if for the long run, because we're not interested in having this as an annual bill, essentially. So we're going to figure out, exactly. So our task is to figure out if we can learn how to do it, and if we have the manpower to like rotate from school to school. We'll be doing that after, or in the context of, or the course of rather, this spring and fall, and have a longer term solution for you. It's something that we've already been discussing.
This is being paid out of the.
Correct.
fund.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion?
So these are rented tents.
They're not. We purchased them.
Okay, so where are they stored?
The event center.
Ah,
Thank you, Mayor.
We're opening at 8 o'clock. I do think that our own staff should put up the tents though. I don't know whether we have to hire some.
yeah, go to park department.
We could.
The long-term solution is to collaborate, to have a team do it. Yes, absolutely. Yep. So I'm hopeful that this is the only time that we're bringing this for you. We wrote this into the grant. And then we're developing a longer-term solution. We'll work with them, learn how to do it ourselves.
So maybe if they're in the park department, maybe they should be there when they take them down.
Well, our folks will. And we can certainly collaborate with them and invite them over. The school's right. Yep, we can do it.
The park department can put them up and take them down in their sleep, but they're busy.
We, I'm not sure if they helped us when we had that impending storm, but we reacted really quickly over a weekend and we took them down, or at least lowered them to a ground. It just takes a lot of manpower. They're large and there's multiple schools, that's all. So we'll cost out what it would take to do on a Saturday or overtime. I'm sure it'll be half the cost of this, so that we don't always have this recurring issue.
We could have regular time.
Except you could do it on regular time, except if during regular time, we have students in the building and needs.
Tents are outside.
Right. So we have to attend to their needs as well. And the majority of our folks work at night.
I'll rely on you. to
Thank you,
handle
Pete.
it. I would-
We're going to bring you a solution that's not this cost annually is, I guess, what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Next question is, are we going to need them as often?
I would love to be able to tell you, no, I'm going to, at this point, say, I hope not. But at the same time, I think being outside in schools that don't have AC and having an opportunity to use them is a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully the world is in a better place anyway, and we're using them. Yes. Right. Right.
And this is the, taken down at the end of the school year this year.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. So our next few items are all first read policies, which all these have been discussed by the policy committee. So the first one, BOE policy 6820, parent-teacher communication and policy. Bless you. Then BOE policy 8011, code of ethics. BOE Policy 5149, use of private technology devices by students. BOE Policy 6720, weighted grading for honors classes and calculation of grade point averages. And last, BOE Policy 6710, graduation requirements. And again, these are all first reads, so read through them. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, we will discuss at our next meeting.
Mr. Chair, I have some questions now, so we can
Yep.
talk about them at some point. I had questions for policy 6720. This is for weighting grading. Are we currently I'm just trying to see how I wrote it on here to say it out loud. So the law that they reference says that we have to tell them informed the district whether or not we are weighting the grades differently, but not that we have to weight them differently. In this policy, it changes it to weighting them differently.
No, it doesn't, Mr. McCool, and that's a really good point. Some of our practices, I'll call them, lived in the high school handbook, not in board policy. We have been weighting this way for a very long time. So we've always done it that way. Same thing when we get to the graduation requirements. If you look at our current graduation requirements, it's very general because it's spelled out more specifically in the handbook. I actually cut and pasted this grid from the high school handbook into this document, and then added some of the verbiage from the new law and some of the verbiage that existed in the, Mr. Harris and I did that together, actually, some of the verbiage that existed in the current handbook. So we're basically telling them that, yes, we are weighting, and this is how we weight it. And this is the manual calculation example of what happens automatically in PowerSchool.
Okay, and do we feel like we actually need to be weighting the classes differently? That a pass for someone who's taking a class at their level, which will count for graduation, is less valuable than a class that someone took with advanced placement? We know they're going to get like college credits or whatever it is for those advanced placements. Do we also have to tell them that the grade they're getting is worth more?
The grade doesn't change. It only impacts GPA, which we're actually going to be using differently anyway for things like class rank and accolades, not the grade. So an A is an A. No one, but the GPA for someone who is taking UConn or calculus is different than someone who might be taking a different math class.
Sure, I'm just saying, if they're already getting like college credit, that's already
Sure.
the benefit of taking that advanced class. Do we have to weight it so that they get a higher GPA than this other student who's also graduating and passing?
We do not have to. It has been our practice and it has been our philosophy to do so, but ultimately the board can decide otherwise. Mr. Harris, are you aware of places that don't do any weighting and do it straight up? I'm not either. What we are hoping to do though, Mr. McCool, and Mr. Harris, you may need to articulate this, but we currently do class rank 1 through 300. And this helps us determine that based on some of these weighted courses. We are going to move towards Latin honors. So essentially, the GPA and the class rank is going to go away for everybody other than the 1, the 2, and the 3. So we're going to continue to have a valedictorian, salutatorian, and class essayist. And then we're going to recognize other students using Latin honors like the colleges do, cum laude, summa cum laude, magna cum laude. So what we'll do is when we get to the graduation requirements, or if there's questions there, we are going to start solely doing Latin honors and the 1, 2, 3 with the next year's freshmen. We're grandfathering in and doing both for those that have been used to the ranked system now, because we don't want to take it away from those that are currently used to and engaged in that system now. You're welcome.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. Same thing.
Newbie, I don't know.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
well, and you know, our graduation policy was last created in 1993, like 2 months after I walked, that I graduated. So it had been a long time. And then I'm like, how can we not have, there's been changes in the law, and really it's because we just had a little blurb, if you look at it, and the changes had been taking place in the handbook. Yes, right. So if you read through the high school handbook and program of studies, you get a lot of information. But we've brought this policy and the graduation requirement policy into this century, so we're good.
My next question then is about the policy 5149, which is our use of private technology devices by students. Just had some questions about some of the language. The timing for pushing this policy in first is a tough one for me. We know that we're having lots of problems with cell phone use and bullying and the use of technology to do so. And the first words of this policy allow students to have their phones. And while I don't think the board or anyone here says, hey, we should take phones away, I know that we want to put out a policy right now that says you're allowed to have it.
We don't have a policy, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait for you to, if there was a question there. Go ahead.
Well, and then further on in the policy, it says using such a device to violate any school rule, including unauthorized video recordings, it defines them, of another individual without the permission, the individual school or staff member, except our schools are public and there is no privacy expectation in public. You can walk into a store, you can walk into a post office, you can walk into the police station and record people. It's about being public. We can't post, we don't post things without the waivers signed by parents from our staff, but there's nothing that prohibits someone from the public recording. It's a constitutionally protected right.
Not in schools. Every word from here came from our attorney. So I actually included this policy because we have been looking at our acceptable use. So at our last meeting, we were talking about cell phone use. We were talking about acceptable, and after further review of our acceptable use policy, I realized that this board and the Naugatuck Public Schools never adopted a private policy. So this aims to, we don't have a policy that says you can't bring them right now either, but the practice is that folks are. So what this policy does is says that you are permitted, but it's a privilege and you can lose that privilege and you can't do these things. So what this is communicating is the expectation that you cannot take a video of someone else, whether it's a teacher or another student, and you're going to be held accountable if you do, which could include consequences and loss of privilege for the use of the personal device. So I am bringing this to the board because I think it's a hole in our current policies. So it's almost like we're on the same page where we have a deficit. I think you and I, but I'm doing it because I think it fills a void. Not doing, and that's because I've been looking at it based on our conversations and what's been going on with some cell phones in 712.
How do we catch on to people that have done it?
So we currently have that issue when we investigate, we collect phones, we take them, we call home, we hold them accountable. This is a policy that gives schools a little more teeth because we're articulating that you can't do it and that you might lose your phone. We really don't have our acceptable use policy. So when I dug in and I was reviewing some have one acceptable use policy that covers both. If you read ours is just the use of the district's internet and computer systems. So we need a separate one to cover, well, no, you can't bring in your own device and do things and either. You have to abide by our rules and regulations, whether you're using our device or a private device. So we're doing it now. We just don't have the policy. We have the practice. And I'm hoping that this is going to align with our discipline. So we're looking at all policies. It's going to align with our practices, and we're going to continue to hold kids accountable and educate them on. So they sign off on a handbook with the acceptable use policy, but this isn't in it. This will be in it from now on.
They take the picture here, they walk outside,
Yeah.
send it out to
It is.
the country.
It is a very difficult thing to curb. Yes, it catches on.
They airdrop it right in the school, right then and there.
This is true. Yes, this is true.
Try to catch these people.
Hmm?
The easiest way is that they have devices in school.
That is a path to take.
I wait and see what time. How they got make that work.
With the bags that they bought the bags, they could put the phones in. Mhm.
Can-
Yes, they're supposed to.
Yeah, and when we do it, whatever we do, there's gotta be some kind of consequence if they don't obey our rules.
Sure. In my mind, this policy helps us with the consequences because I think it better defines expectations. And kids will review this. This essentially, you read it today, you vote on it next time. It gets into the handbooks and folks sign off on it at the beginning of the year and are aware.
And you said the lawyer is comfortable with the wording of it.
The lawyer wrote every word of this. So we just happened to, they wrote every word of it. This came from Shipman, where the majority of our policies came from.
Any other questions?
If you give me just a moment, I have one more policy I'd like to talk about.
Yep.
But if anyone else has anything first, I'm just bringing up the notes. So the last policy to talk about for me then, Chairman, is 8011, which is the Code of Ethics.
Yep.
I personally would like to see, if we're going to adopt a code of ethics, a workshop where the board gets together and writes a code of ethics for us, and we don't adopt a generic one that's being used by other school districts or written by a third-party organization. There are 6 bullet points in this that I find poor language, egregious, or not something that I can back. I also don't like that the code of ethics as a policy, as opposed to a statement that we might put out. Putting out a policy that would hold ethically for future board members doesn't sit well with me. That you can say what ethics are forever. As we've seen in our current years, ethics, what people find ethical has changed. And so like I could see us coming together, working as a workshop and working on a code of ethics that we all agree on and putting out a statement saying, hey, these are our code of ethics. We signed it for the term, and then encouraging future boards to do so, but not adopting it as a policy. And I can certainly go through point by point the points that I find poor wording in.
You can.
Okay. I'm just going to put it in front of me as I. Bullet point 1 says, I'll be a staunch advocate for high quality free public education for all Connecticut children. And fulfilling my responsibilities, I will think of children first. This isn't really an ethical question. And I think stating children first is the wrong language. We certainly think about our children, but it's not about putting them first. It's about putting first the needs of our children. And who's to say what high quality is and what high quality isn't? It's not defined. Bullet point 2 talks about the agent of the state, which is not wording we find in the general statute or the charter for Connecticut. It actually uses the words educational interest of the state There are 5 specific places where they clarify when we act as agents of the states. They all have to do with budgetary reasons and to not cause conflict legally between towns, cities, and boards of education. Bullet point 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will work unremittingly to help my community understand the importance of proper support for public education, whether it be providing adequate finance, optimum facilities, staffing. Oh, no, I apologize. That's the wrong one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. I will join my board, staff, community, and students in becoming fully informed about the nature, value, direction of contemporary education in our society. I will support the needed changes in our schools. What is contemporary education? Who decides what that is? It's not defined here. And how can we then accept it as part of an ethical guide that we're pushing for? In bullet point 8, it talks about consulting with those affected. These meetings are public for that very reason, so that people can know that we're talking about who's affected. We're talking about everyone in our school district. This is the consultation for that. I don't think that we want to talking to everyone every time we want to make a decision that affects them. In bullet point 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It talks about attempting to combine my board action to policymaking, planning, appraisals, and will help frame policies. Plans only have, no, that's the one I just read. 10. I will arrive at conclusions only after discussing all aspects of the issues in hand with my fellow board members in meetings. I will respect their opinions and others and abide by the principle of majority rule. I think we have board policies that talk about some of this part, but you can't determine how 9 different people draw conclusions separately as one person. We abide by majority rule. That's how we agree to disagree. And then the last one is bullet point 13, holding 10, 1, 2, 3. I apologize, as I just find it here in my paper in front of me. It's the one that talks about not saying something that will show individuals or schools in a poor light. Certainly, we would never out individuals, but talking about the problems in our schools is what we're here to do and addressing them. And sometimes that does show us in a poor light. And so I don't know that that belongs in something we would put down on the record. And again, I would just say that, that having a code of ethics like this as a policy, it's not enforceable. There's no backlash for not following it. So I don't see a reason other than to put out a PR statement for having a policy like this on the board.
Thank you.
This was my concern as well. I was wondering about the enforceability of this code of ethics. I just, as a general statement, it did seem like there are some things in here that cannot really be adequately enforced. So I'm not really sure why it needs to be stated. And some of these things are kind of very gauzy statements that are not, they sound really lovely, but I don't particularly enjoy some of the wording. Like one of the things that I was particularly alarmed by was that there is needed change in our schools. I think we've just had 2 years of upheaval in our schools, and I don't think we really need very much change. I think that every teacher in the building is trying to roll with the punches, as it were, and we are too. But I just some things in this that were red flags for me. And actually, I had some other town Board of Ed members approach me and ask me about this particular code of ethics because they were a little bit interested as to how it seemed to kind of be very broad and no real repercussions if these things are not being followed as we are duly elected officials, and, we don't take a salary or anything for this. This is done on our, as a volunteer basis. And so I'm very concerned with, some of these, not all of the statements. I mean, most of these statements I can, of course, immediately get right on board with, but some of them I'm just a little like, they're a little broad, they could be going different ways. And I have concerns about that. And I also worry about enforcement. So that's my only statement here.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Questions?
Mr. Chairman, then would you entertain a motion to table the code of ethics until we can have a workshop to work on it as a team?
So we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
And any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
And those opposed?
Nay.
A comment. Wouldn't the policy be to have the members follow the code of ethics, but have a separate document that is the code of ethics that members would agree to? I mean, isn't that the correct way to do it?
Well, this is a bylaw. So we're calling it a policy because the bylaws are in the policy, but this is there's a code of conduct in the bylaw. There's lots of things that articulate sort of the means in which the board will conduct their business. And this is essentially a list of commitments that the
No, but
board
if
is.
someone's going to be punished, it's not going to be for not following a bylaw. It would be for not following the code of ethics.
Right, but there's other things. The code of conduct is in there. There's other policies. And the accountability would be the board. Just the only way I think the
By the way, I
board,
didn't even read it. I'm
Yeah.
just talking out loud.
I think that comes through censorship, right? So the board always has the opportunity to censor its members through the process, like any other public. But other than that, it would be a bylaw like the other bylaws. Essentially, an extension of the code of conduct.
I would just say I would prefer to see a meeting offline than to bring me back to discuss this. So I would say an offline meeting is better than a board workshop.
Our policy has to go to 2 meetings. So it would go to another 2 meetings after this next meeting if we end up having the meeting, before it gets passed based on our bylaws.
I would like to know if we could just table this motion until the next meeting. And at that time, we can read it, allowing everybody to read this better and understand the whole situation without just jumping out of the house saying it's not right. I don't know how people would feel
There's-
about it.
We're already in the process of voting.
Yeah.
You got to vote.
You got to
Yeah.
finish the vote.
Okay, so the motion was to table. So we had Mr. McCool. Yep.
We had a workshop on it.
Yep, and Mr. McCool and Ms. Makowski were in favor of tabling. Is there anyone else in favor of tabling? And those opposed tabling?
Opposed.
Opposed.
It's first read, right?
Correct.
I'm staying.
And an abstention. So then that motion fails.
You should still talk about it between meetings.
Correct. So then between meetings, we'll discuss and
Can we have a motion for that, please? I mean, I'm asking, Mr. Chair.
yeah, I'm trying to think of.
Sorry.
No, because it's
I'm not trying to make it difficult.
right.
We were just like to discuss
Yes. Yep. No, we could definitely talk about it offline and try to come up with some either better wording or,
Can
Sure,
we-
this, just so that everybody knows, there's tons of districts that have this. This is written by CABE, which there's board members from all over the state. They got together and wrote this based on the standards for boards of education. So there's Farmington, Fairfield, there's plenty of places that have the code of ethics in place in regards to their bylaws. We also don't have a code of ethics, just so you know, for our teachers. So I'll be bringing it either the next meeting. We have the code of professional responsibilities, but in looking at policy, we can further and better define it with a code of ethics for teachers as well. So I'll be bringing that, to the board. So I just don't want you to think that we're doing something way off. We're aligning to Connecticut's organization for boards of education and to the standards that are guiding us. And we did have a conversation already with three of our board members or two of our board members before we brought it to this committee too. Happy to schedule a workshop. Absolutely. That's not on the agenda. We would need 2/3 to add it. I don't know that we need it. I will schedule, you direct me to schedule a workshop and I'll do it.
Alicia.
I understand that there are other school boards that do this, and I appreciate that. I was just asking if we could possibly come together and just take care of these couple of little things that I feel are a little bit more broad than I would like to go ahead and put myself under, if that makes any sense at all.
Absolutely. And this is ultimately your bylaws. You guys have to live with it. I was just making sure the whole group knows, because not everyone was privy to the conversation. I just don't want you to think the policy committee sat in a room and invented it. We looked at, yeah, absolutely. So,
Yep.
Ultimately you guys will vote on something that you're comfortable with. We'll wordsmith, we'll make the changes, and we'll come out with something hopefully that everybody is happy with.
Yep. And in the meantime, if we do need to do a workshop, between this meeting and next meeting,
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're going to talk about it before
Yep.
next read. That's the only thing I'm asking. And
Yes.
And if that it requires a motion or whatever, I would like for that
Yep.
to happen.
no
Thank you.
motion. I could call a workshop if,
Perfect.
We need
Thank you. I appreciate that
No
very much
problem.
so.
okay. That brings us to approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2022 regular meeting? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell. Do we have a second?
Second?
And a second by Ms. Malone. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to communications. And our first communications is from the National Band Association, congratulating the Naugatuck High School Band on earning the State Marching Band Championship for the state of Connecticut in November 2021. That letter is in your board docs. And as always, we are extremely proud of our students and our band. We have an amazing choral and band department at our high school, and we're incredibly proud of them. Then that brings us to City Hill Stepping Forth ceremony, which will be held on Monday, June 13th at 6 p.m. That is at City Hill Middle School on the field there. And then we go to the adult education graduation, which is in the Davis Auditorium on Thursday, May 26th at 7 p.m. I encourage all board members to attend. It is one of our best ceremonies of the year. It's moving. It's a really good experience. May 26th at 7 o'clock. And then That brings us to the Outstanding Scholar Jacket Ceremony, which will be held Wednesday, April 20th at 2 p.m. in the Davis Auditorium. That's another really good ceremony where you get to hear about the students and hear from their teachers, saying all the good things about the kids. And then we'll go to the Connecticut Growing for Connecticut Kids Grant. Yep, if Miss Murphy wants to give a little talk.
Oh, so while she's walking up, I didn't mean certainly to put you on the spot, but Kate Murphy, the Director of Food Services, has secured a grant. So thank you very much, and I'm going to stop there and have you tell us a little bit about it. If you scroll to like page 10. Do you know how many it said 12 field trips. Is that 2 per school or?
Yes, thank you. That brings us to bid waivers. Any questions on the bid waivers that are there?
Yeah, it's the same question I have all the time. Why is it always have to be done immediately?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first one was the first one was we need to do it right now. It's actually leaking the water. And the second one, we rushed it. But we've already, in terms of the fence, we likely could have gotten more quotes. So.
I know they're pumped downstairs for a while. Is it at the point now that we do have to do it immediately?
We did it already.
Oh, we did it already.
Yeah, or no, did we do it already, Michael? Not yet.
The pump is currently 31 years old. The housing itself, the design, it's no longer manufactured. So technically, you can't get another one. It needs to be pad, the housing is rusting, as you can see, it's.
Yes, but then it
Failed school degree today.
Yeah. Like I said, this was like that last year. For a couple of years.
Universal.
Yeah. If it was been going on, ongoing, why didn't we set it up a bit earlier?
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not blaming anybody.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think that now that Michael is here for the full year, he came on after we had already started. That's something that we'll that we'll fix. Right now, now it's beyond repair, and we were like, let's get it done now. But in a perfect world, it would be put into the budget, and we would have time, and we would do it as a project that we bring to you and we talk about. Yep, absolutely. And yep.
Any other questions on the bid waivers? Seeing none, we'll move into adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Marilyn. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.